Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and the topic recently came up about how frequently I reorganize things around here. Well, I just did it. Can you tell? Any difference? Usually it results in a little bit of free space where a couple new systems can get placed, so just taking up the free space after stuff has been retired and harvested. So the feeding I've got for the European nightcrawlers that we're checking in on today is what you see here: strawberry, a pear cut in half, couple slices of bread. So I've got my spray bottle because bread needs to be thoroughly soaked before it gets placed into a worm bin. These two black bins right here are the systems we're checking in on today. Last week too, or well, 13 days ago, we gave them a similar feeding where a nice big chunk of fruit, in that case mango, not pear, was placed right smack in the middle, and I'm curious to see what they've made of it. Perhaps it's all gone already, so it might be history. Who knows, maybe we'll bump in on a little worm party going on here. So we're going to check in on these little guys, bring the systems up on the bench, and we're going to get them fed. Let's get started. Just a few more stats. I think I already mentioned that it's been 13 days since the last check-in, and during that last check-in we pretty much concluded that we were out of the corn cob tracking business. 383 days was what we decided the age was of those pieces of corn cob that came with these worms from their old home, because I mean that 383-day-old test, that started long before these 140-day-old, 20-week-old systems were launched off. So 12 feedings so far, and as you saw before, feeding number 13 is a nice juicy looking one. For bedding, my idea was to use leaves, kind of like the leaves that you see sprinkled out here on the top surface. The ones that are already in here, out here on the top surface, we'll just blend those in. And, well, feedings on indicators I don't have replacements for, so we'll hang on to these. So we can mark where we last fed. Presumably the one over here is in good enough shape to be reused. Maybe not. Perhaps that can just get blended in as part of the bedding. Maybe we can even split the feeding zone indicator in half and share it. So the plastic was covering pretty thoroughly, but you could see exactly where there was leaves that were exposed to the air. They're kind of dry, lighter in color, and down here the darker material is the stuff where the recirculation of the moisture occurs under the plastic. And I believe when I reviewed the video, the way it started out last time was that we were coming into the systems with the coverings sort of cinched in to provide a little bit more material to be exposed to the air and capable of drying off a little bit. And now that I'm kind of digging through the material, I can sort of sense why we might have done that. There's a good bit of moisture down in here, but I think as long as the stuff doesn't feel like it's clumping together or getting muddy, the high moisture is probably a good thing. So I don't think we're going to try to encourage evaporation. I think we kind of gave up on that at some point and decided to cover up thoroughly last time. So here we've got the seed, or maybe half of the seed that came with the half of a mango, because the mango was frozen, it was chopped right down the middle. And as far as any of the fruit remaining, well, not surprising that that's all gone. But that seed, still inside of its half of a husk, is still holding together, and it'll hold up together for quite some time. That's some pretty sturdy stuff there. So for whatever reason, we started over in bin number 2. I'm going to assume that we're going to find something very similar here in bin number 1. I'm guessing we're going to bump into half of a mango seed, and perhaps I wasn't too accurate on going down the middle, because this is actually like just the very, very edge, or the top of the husk of the mango seed. So I guess I didn't take care in making sure that I was cutting the mango in half directly through the seed. And no worm party for the most part where the mango had been. I guess 13 days was just long enough for it to get consumed by the worms. So I got a couple soiled napkins here. Paper towels. This one might be a napkin. No, they're both paper towel, I believe. And, let's bring in some leaves. I was going to use just more of these leaves like what we've got as bedding as part of today's feeding. So let's give them a nice healthy portion of that too. As you saw, we were already blending in all this leafy stuff on the top, and we'll blend it in even more once we get to backfilling the feeding area. But let's not forget, this bread definitely needs a good dampening before we leave it for the worms, and these dry leaves I guess wouldn't hurt from a little dampening either. So luckily we've got that paper towel directly below, which will soak it in and hang on to it right there next to the leaves, letting the leaves get nice and damp. I believe that that bread is nice and thoroughly moistened now. Should make it pretty easy for the worms to have at it, and hopefully they appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's going to be very nice. So let's bring in the feeding. I guess sort of like last time, I could place the main event food right in the middle again. See what happens. Perhaps this is the way to do it, like this. As the juices start spewing out of this fruit, they'll go right into that bread, and they're going to make that bread pretty much irresistible to the worms. So let's drop in this lovely fruity meal. And I've got my grit here. We're going to dress it up with just a little sprinkling of grit here, help with the breakdown of the food that they're getting. And, well, since I've got my leaves here, perhaps we can even top dress the system again now that all the leaves that had been resting out on the top surface are getting blended in everywhere. Here too, we're definitely getting a sense of how moist things are down low. I've got a feeling bringing all this nice leafy matter mixed into the bed is just going to make things really super nice down in here. I really like the moisture level in here, and I think as long as we keep, you know, applying generous portions of bedding and blending it in, we kind of mitigate the risk of seeing the stuff get all clumped together, because it's turning into like a castings only environment. Having a good bit of organic material and bedding type stuff blended in seems to be the trick to keeping stuff nice and flaky and smooth, and probably that much more comfortable for the worms to be in too. So how's this going to work? Are we going to share? Split our feeding zone indicator down the middle, something we don't do too often, but you know, I kind of got into this little experiment where I went ahead and I pretty much tapped out my entire backlog, I don't know, supply I had, little inventory, growing inventory of coffee filters, and I've still got one or two, but I figured, you know, we'll just use the one that's in here already. It's plenty to just show us where we last fed. The feeding zone indicators certainly don't have any sort of strict rules or bylaws that we need to abide by. Yeah, this stuff looks so nice, and it's so nice as this leafy matter gets blended in. Everything's got a good moisture content to it, and it's nice that we can always put the plastic covers back on loosely if we wanted to allow for a little bit of drying, but I don't think we need anything of that sort. We're just going to put the plastic covers on quite thoroughly, right back on, almost the way we found them. They weren't like put on with great care to make sure there's like absolutely minimum aeration or minimum evaporation occurring. We didn't really go out of our way to try to prevent it. There was kind of a loosely applied plastic cover that allowed for some of the stuff to be open to the air and some of it to be exposed, and I think that's kind of the way we're going to leave it here today. So let's bring the plastic on, but put it on in a kind of haphazard, loosey-goosey way, and that'll be just perfect. That's just what the doctor ordered. So that's it for our check-in with the European nightcrawlers now on day 140, 20-week-old systems, getting their now 13th feeding. And this was a nice one, I must say. I hope they enjoy it. Perhaps we'll get back soon enough to see a little worm party happening in the pair. That would probably have to happen in a pretty short period of time, so I don't know. We'll see. Perhaps, again, we'll just come back in here and there'll be nothing left. Perhaps a seed or two or a stem. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.